Right, welcome to the Apprentice One-to-One podcast or YouTube show, whatever we're going to call it. I'm not sure if we're going to pop this out on video format, but we are recording it with video just in case anyone wants to look at Matthew's face. I'm sure you're all sick of seeing mine, but you'll notice I've got a guest on this one with me this week, and I said on the intro episode that we'd be speaking to various people across the industry, and one of those people is this young man who's here with me now. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Matthew, and I'm your son. And I was your apprentice at one point.
Exactly, and that's the point you're here, really. Not so much for being a son, but for being an apprentice who's recently gone through that process. So you're not an apprentice anymore, obviously, and it's really to speak to you about some of the problems and some of the benefits of the apprenticeship system and your route into it and route out of it, how you found life through it and beyond. And I've got a selection of questions I'm going to run through with you. Some of them involve the explanation of the adiabatic equation and your thoughts on earthing foundations on new build that's been mentioned in the draft amendment of the regulations that's up for review till the middle of December. So
I think my internet's cutting out.
Yeah, I think we'll take your comments on that towards the end of the podcast, but Neil insisted I ask you those things just to prove you did actually pay attention at college. But now, first off, it was your entry into the electrical world. What made you fall into the apprenticeship system in the first place? Because you have quite a common theme of people coming into the electrical industry and any construction industry through the apprenticeship system, really. So would you like to explain what brought you into the trade?
I left school. I went to sixth form for a year and I wasn't really enjoying it. I wanted a more physical job instead of academics, I guess.
Yeah, and also
in going to university.
Also, yeah, your grades weren't especially good and your teachers thought you spent too long daydreaming out of the window. I seem to remember from a parents' evening we went to. And your mock results didn't go particularly well, did they?
No, I think my mocks were all right. It was my actual exams.
Okay, then that's even worse. So there we go. So you kind of were in the position of realizing that you needed to do something that you were actually interested in, and it was quite handy that your dad had an electrical contracting business and needed a bit more labour assistance in that. So you had it fall into your lap a bit too easy, really, didn't you? Thinking about it. Silver
spoon.
Yeah, must be the case. But no, that is quite a common story that there's often people who've either struggled in school or struggled with A-levels, realised that, that was never really what they wanted to be doing, but that's where you kind of get pushed through the education system normally. And there's a lot of people who end up falling into trades sort of a little bit later on in their lives after school, and would be normal because a lot of careers advice doesn't often push people down that path, which is a shame because, as Matthew's going to explain, it's quite a rewarding career path. So after you left the sixth form, what was the actual process like for starting an apprenticeship? Did you have interviews at the college before you signed up, or was it a case of just going straight onto that course and starting out? What actually happened?
I think you arranged an interview, to be fair. I can't remember who it was that we met. And then she spoke about enrolling at the college and went through all the application forms.
Yeah, so we had quite a bit of help, didn't we, from it was actually Humberside Apprenticeship Scheme at the time.
Yeah.
And then we went to meet the lecturer at the college as well, who made sure that you had a suitable employer and that you were actually interested in doing it. It is quite heavily subscribed, a lot of these apprenticeship schemes. They don't have enough places in a lot of the local training centres, so they are a little bit selective. Although apprenticeship numbers are on decline, the actual places for them in colleges have also been on decline for a number of years. There's just not the funding. So that was a first-hand experience of the efforts college make to try and get the right students on the courses. So that was nice to see. And what are some of the common problems you faced during your apprenticeship, not just by yourself, but maybe by other people? And just to give you some examples of that, I'm thinking of getting assessed out on site, or having employers who perhaps haven't released some of your friends into the training aspect, so they haven't been allowed to go to college, or even getting paid wages and stuff? What's some of the stuff that you heard was going on or experienced yourself?
Well, personally, I don't think I had a site visit until my third year of my apprenticeship, towards the end of the third year. So it's sort of rushed towards the end, but he did try the hardest to get me through it. And then a lot of the lads at college did have to miss out on a lot of college because they had to work. So they missed a few weeks and then quickly fall behind.
Yeah, and that's, again, through Apprentice 1-to-1 and some of the messages I've had, certainly most recently, there's a lot of people in the same situation where their employers are telling them, we've got to get these projects over the line and we can't be letting you go off to college. And of course, stuff like that will happen here and there from the odd week or two, but when it's consistent over a few months, obviously that's not right. If people are employed on a contract as an apprentice, they need to be released and paid for the time in college as well. So yeah, I mean, that does go on, and you've seen that yourself, haven't you, Matthew, with some of the people who did the course with you, a few years ago?
Yeah, I think some of them even had to redo the year again.
Yeah, and that's awful.
Because they missed out on so much of it.
Yeah, that's awful when people are having their lives affected, because it's not just a year lost in time, it's a year later till you're earning proper money and getting pay rises, and it's not through any fault of your own. That's not good to hear. And going back to the site visits from the assessors, I do know with your particular college, they had a huge funding issue and they were actually in crisis, weren't they, at one point as a whole college, not just to do with electrical training or construction. So there was mitigating circumstances for them not having assessors to go out and see all of you. And the gentleman who actually sorted you out in the end was very, very good. But leading up to that, it was a battle getting through it, wasn't it? And again, I think that's fairly common across the industry. So we need to look at training of apprentices and the funding that's going into the colleges and making sure we have all the right people in place to enable you to finish those courses quite clearly, and employers who are working within the system in the right way, because it seems people are burying their heads in the sand that it's all rosy in that system and everything gets done by the book, when we know through our own experiences, people I've spoken to, people Matthew's spoken to, that's not the case. So yeah, that sort of was your apprenticeship system. I wanted to ask you as well about some of the training and CPD you've done after your apprenticeship, because now you're 2 years out of your time, getting on for 3 years, I think. So what have you gone on to do after you finish? What are some of the courses you'd recommend to other apprentices who coming out of the time now to be looking towards for helping them out get jobs and build careers?
I recently went and did my electric vehicle installing, the charger installing.
Yeah, so that's the EV charging course, and there's going to be a lot of that going on. So that's a good one to have, isn't it? And we actually
seems to be a lot more
utilised. There is, and it's just going to get more and more, because obviously everyone's going to have electric vehicles based on what the government policy is. So it makes sense to have those qualifications in our little business, and it made even more sense to make sure you were the person who had them first. So yeah, that's a good shout for apprentices. I mean, what about the wiring regs? I know through your actual apprenticeship course, I think yours was still on the 17th edition at the time, wasn't it? So yours needed an update anyway. But would you say it's worthwhile doing the regulations course anyway after you finish your apprenticeship? Because a lot of employers will ask for that, in my experience, regardless of your apprenticeship just been finished or not.
Yeah, it seemed to be worth it. It was a good little course to do. Prove that you can do it. Yeah,
and it goes on your CV, doesn't it? So what about some sort of supplementary stuff then, like IPAF, for example?
Yeah, well, I only did the IPAF because you're scared of heights.
Yeah, I mean, that's always good if you can put someone else in the basket rather than yourself. But again,
that was fun.
If you were to go off and look for a job away from our business, now if you've got your IPAF license and you've got your wiring regs and your apprenticeship and your EV certificate, they're all good things to have, aren't they? Because you need to realise a lot of apprentices who are maybe coming out of the system don't have jobs at the end of it. Their employers don't want to take on fully qualified electricians, so they're going to be going off looking for employment and things to make them stand out. And some of the courses you've highlighted there are good ones. You've also done the golden course, the one that everybody wants. You've not mentioned that one yet. So what do you think I'm thinking of? The 239 one, maybe, Matthew, the test and inspection.
Oh, yeah, I did do that one.
Yeah, you did the 239 one. And how old was you when you did the 239 one? Because you were you're still pretty young now. You're only 22.
Just turned 19.
Yeah, I don't know. Was you 19 or 20, I think?
No, I was 19.
Was you?
I think I was the youngest one they'd had.
Yeah, so I mean, that's very young to be doing a 239 one. And if Neil is going to bother listening to this, he'll be shouting at his car radio right now, because it's his firm belief that people shouldn't even be considering 239 until they're at least 5 years out of the time. And you've done it far too soon. But obviously, we not speaking too much about the business we work in, but we specialise in compliance. And it made perfect sense for us to give you that experience and training from an early age. We knew you were capable of it, and you were proved that by passing the course. So I mean, that's a good one for apprentices to be looking towards as they work out of the time. So I mean, Neil's advice is very sensible, and 5 years is a good window to be looking towards it. So my own personal opinion would be to look at the supplementary courses, so your EV courses, as Matthew said about iPath as well, and certainly your wiring regs, even though it is covered within your apprenticeship, to have that separate certificate is a key aspect for employers. So moving on from that, what's your actual favourite part of the job now you are 2 years out of, well, it's probably, how many years is it out of your time now? It must be at least 2, getting on for 3. I lose track of time. It's a while anyway, isn't it? So what's your favourite part of the job now? So just to explain to anyone who is listening, Matthew's now out in his own van, his own set of tools and gear. He deals with customers himself. He manages jobs and stuff. So he's not babied or looked after all the time anymore, just checked in on every now and then to make sure he's not setting anything on fire and electrocuting anybody. So what's your actual favourite part of the day job now? If you had to pick one thing, what do you enjoy doing the most? Apart from talking to me.
Probably everyone's least favourite thing. I like chopping boxes out.
You like chopping boxes out? You should have gone on Fat's Grand Slam and met Nick and Amy, and you could have shown them how neat you can chop boxes out. It can't have been any worse than Sam and Amy's attempt. They chopped half the bloody wall down when they did it. Hopefully you'd be as good as Nick. So you like the boring, dusty chopping out stuff. That's quite handy for me, because I don't like that at all. So leading on from that, and it kind of links back into it a little bit, what's some of the best tools for a start-out apprentice? So if you think of some of this is somebody who's just going into an apprenticeship at 16, 17, or an adult learner just starting the course, what would be your suggestions for them for tools? What were some of the tools you found most useful when you were first starting out?
A nice pair of side cutters.
Side cutters and not croppers? Jesus, you're going to be going down in everybody's estimations now.
Nah, you've got to have both.
You like both?
Some decent pliers. You just need some good hand tools. Don't spend all of your money on them, but don't get the cheapest ones. If you can.
Yeah, I mean, what sort of tools did your college have? Did they have decent stuff to use when you were there, or was it a case of bring your own, or it was going to be hard work?
No, we took our own because everything was blunt.
Yeah, so if you were to pick your favourite screwdriver brand, then where cost wasn't an objective, what would it be?
I used to like the Wera ones, but now I've got the Klein ones. I think they're probably the best ones I've had.
Yeah, and I think that's quite a common opinion along a lot of electricians at the minute, that the Klein screwdrivers are excellent. And based on that, then, what would you go for if you were an apprentice right now with, say, 100 quid in your pocket to get yourself some tools? Would you be buying Klein screwdrivers, or would you be looking at some CK ones maybe, or I don't know, some Draper ones even? What would you go to?
I think they do a Wera set that's reasonably priced.
Yeah. I mean, most of them are all sort of 15 to 30 quid, aren't they? So you can get a decent set of screwdrivers for not the greatest sum of money. And again, on your snips or your croppers, pliers, where are you going with those ones? Because you've got Weha, or however you say it, and you've got Nipex and Klein. I mean, for me, I would be saying Nipex. What would you say?
Yeah, I've got Nipex ons.
Yeah,
I had some of them.
My croppers actually a wee hack because they've got a really nice 160mm set that fit my small hands, and I'm getting on with those very well. And you know, they weren't too expensive, so that'd be my shout out on the tools for an apprentice. If you're looking for a start out set of croppers, go for them. So what would be? Go on, carry on. You used to like what?
I used to like them ones. They had like a power, you know, where you could change the.
Oh, those power driver ones. Yeah,
they had long handles, so they were nice.
Yeah, it changed the. There was a power button on the cutters, wasn't there, or side cutters, and it changed the strength through I think it just opened them wider and swapped them into a different gear internally. So it was mechanical rather than electrical, making that more powerful side cutter. So what would your advice for apprentices be coming through now? So if you had some apprentices going on to a course, what would be the best advice you could give them? So I'll give you some pointers. Would it be asking questions or turning up on time, or would it be sitting on your smartphone all day, paying no attention to your employer, not turning up to college? What would you say to somebody who's just starting out now on their path to end up where you are?
Common sense. Don't be sat on your phone all day. Ask questions where you need to. Turn up to college on time and work.
Work hard.
Make a good impression.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who seem afraid to ask dumb questions. But I always say you don't know what you don't know. So that's a very good shout, that if you're not sure on something, just ask. There's a lot of electricians out there who are more than happy to help. I mean, Instagram's full of people helping each other. If you go on there, you see it every day. Ask other people in the trade around you. The decent people will spend the time to help you out. You know, there's that fear of being ridiculed in a lot of ways. So, you know, don't be fearful. Ask questions and soak it all in. So looking at what sort of content you consume, because we are putting this podcast out now ourselves, and it's often spoken about among old farts like me about what apprentices are actually looking at in the electrical industry. If you're watching any webinars, or if you're reading any books, or paying any attention to influencers on YouTube, what are you actually consuming around the electrical industry in terms of CPD and content? So I'm thinking, is there any particular books you read, any webinars you ever tune into, or anybody's YouTube channels you watch? Or that you did watch while you were doing your apprenticeship that helped you out while you were doing that? I should clarify that question. So it's not really now, it's thinking about what you used to watch.
Yeah, I used to watch a lot of the GSH videos when I was doing my apprenticeship.
Gary's a legend. He's got that nailed down for apprentices with eFix and GSH. So that's a good shout, and he'll be trimmed to hear that you were another person who's benefited from that, along with the many, many others. Anything else?
Watch Monday Club.
You obviously watch Monday Club because we pay you too. We need the views.
And then just the influencers, I guess. YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah.
And read little bits here and there.
So any of those in particular to come to mind? We all know you love Nick, so there's obviously Nick Bundy.
Yeah. Nick Bundy's my favourite.
And Adam.
Yeah.
What about someone like Tom Nagy or Nagy, however we're saying it? Do you watch him?
Yeah, I'm a YouTube subscriber.
Yeah, that's good. And is there any sort of webinars you watch? So, I mean, where actual NAPIT members, say that right, NAPIT, because the people at NAPIT get annoyed with NAPIT. And do you ever watch any of their webinars? I do, but I'm an old git. You probably don't.
I haven't. I've watched a few of the different product webinars.
Okay, yes, you have. So, like
the PodPoint one.
And some of the Natama, or however you say that one as well. You've watched some of those and Nest ones as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
So that's interesting to hear. As an apprentice, you tended to be looking at stuff on YouTube primarily then, wasn't it? And again, we've spoken about this before on Monday Club, how when we were Matthew's age and younger, we didn't have any of that. YouTube didn't even exist. So if we wanted to learn something, Sam's told the tale of going to the library on the bus and getting a library card and having to wait a few days till you could even get any books out. You couldn't go onto social media and start asking other electricians. You literally learn in a very close circle of people around you. And that was just the way things were. So now that you've got that content on YouTube, that's massive in the way that can help apprentices. And perhaps we need to look at that as industry through the IET and even some of the CPS providers that were targeting that content towards apprentices on the right platform. So that's interesting. So looking at test equipment then, so you do a lot of your own testing now, test your own work off, and we have got experience of various different bits of test kit. What would be your favourite multifunction tester?
I like the Megas.
So you're a Mega boy. So I mean, at the minute,
yeah.
I've been playing around with the TIS, and I've used Megas extensively over the last 10 years. Certainly, I used to use Flukes before that. And yeah, that's a good shout. Megas, pretty much the standard in the industry for MFTs and wider multimeters and clamp meters. They're sort of the go-to along with Fluke, I would say. And certainly you've got up and coming products from TIS now. They seem to be building their range out. And yeah, that's a good shout. I can agree with that. So you're not completely new to this. You have actually appeared on Monday Club. If anybody wants to go and watch Matthew's appearance, it's in the Nick Bundy episode before he was a host. So Nick was on with me, Sam, Rick and Neil, and Matthew popped in to sit and have a bit of a chat with them. So if you want to see more of Matthew talking with the guys on Monday Club, you can go back and look at that. And yeah, otherwise, is there anything else you would like to add, Matthew, about what would help apprentices at the moment? Anything you can think of that they might find beneficial? Any resource you send them towards. So if somebody's struggling with their AM2, for example, just to finish on this, because there's a lot of people who've been out of college through COVID, not had the training they need, not had the lecturers instructing them. What advice would you give those people? Is it a case of going and watch stuff from the likes of Gary on YouTube, or getting their employers to set up some rigs and stuff? Because we did that, didn't we? We had you bending tube and messing about with tray, just scrap offcuts and making lamps and light fittings up. So you could have a good old scrap pile. What would be your advice to them? So this is people who are maybe looking at finishing off their apprenticeships.
I think when it was me, I spent a lot of time watching the GSH videos and the test rigs that we was making and bending and practicing with the containment. Even though it's not part of the AM2, it's a good skill to have.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good call. So we'll actually have a little chat about AM2. When you did yours, because it's changed, I think it's changed again since you did it. Is it now the AM2s? I think there's a lot of questions that I've asked to me of the AM2. A lot of people wondering what's actually involved. So when you did yours, did you actually have to bend any of your own tube or measure and cut your own tray? Because it used to be a case of you got given a length of tube and it was just about enough to do everything you needed. And if you made one mistake, that was it. Job screwed. Fail. Did you have to do any of that, or is it all on the wall ready?
It's all on the wall ready. Turn up, and then you just get into a booth, and it's all on the wall. And you've got to follow a job checklist and sheet, and install it into the containment that's provided.
Okay. And do you have to then test it off, and do they watch you testing it and check you do safe isolation correctly and stuff like that? Is that in the process as well?
Yeah, so you have to first fix everything and choose all your own cables and make sure that they're correct sizes. And then you second fix it all, and then you have to test it. And while you're doing it all, the invigilator, I guess, is going around and checking everyone's doing stuff, making sure you're not cheating.
Okay, and do they introduce any faults on anything for you to find? Is there any of that?
Yes, I think that's a complete section. So after you've done your own install and tested it, you do like fault scenarios, and they pick a fault. They don't tell you what it is, and you've got to work it out and find what it is.
Okay, so what was your fault? Do you remember? What did they actually set you to find? Was it a tricky trap or something quite straightforward?
I think you get, I can't remember exactly how many it was, but there's a few. I think one was to do with a data point. It was misterminated. And there was a ring circuit with an open CPC. A circuit with a dead short.
Okay, so they do chuck a few things in there, then it's not just a case of one little bit you've got to find. That's interesting to know. Looking at the AM2, then was it a worthwhile end to your apprenticeship, or was it easy and pointless based on everything else you'd been doing? Was there a purpose to it for you? Because some of the guys on Monday Club think it's a waste of time and what's the point? And some of the other guys on there, and I'm kind of in the middle of these two camps, think it's a good end test to things to prove you've reached a certain level of competence and someone's actually witnessed you doing some install work. So did you find it a bit of a challenge?
I thought it was a bit of a challenge. It's kind of everything you have done at college and you should have done. It sort of reinforces it and proves that you can do it yourself.
Yeah. So you think it's worthwhile to a point having done that?
I think so.
That's interesting, because that, again, I mean, you seem to be disagreeing with Neil in most things, because he thinks it's pointless. Unless I'm misquoting him, I might be getting mixed up between them, because I don't often listen to what any of them are saying. So yeah, that's interesting, Matthew. And again, looking at sort of the whole process through AM2, did you find that you had the support from your college in preparing for that, or was it a case of figuring it out yourself? So did they prep you on what to expect when you went for it, or was it a case of no one said nothing to you and you had to go off and find out yourself? Can't you remember?
I can't remember completely, but I think they gave us some kind of PowerPoint presentation where it would run through the things you could expect, sort of to prepare yourself. And I think they did offer an evening class where you could go and sort of prepare for it.
So do you think it'd maybe be a good thing if industry was a bit clearer to apprentices of what's actually involved in AM2? Because I certainly do, based on some of the questions I'm getting asked. I mean, again, this is like an exceptional circumstance with COVID-19. I don't know if this happens every year, but there seems to be a lot of students who don't really know what's involved. So, I mean, do you think it's something that's maybe lacking and it could be explained a bit better, or is it just one-off due to COVID and it's not normally like that?
I wasn't 100% sure on what to expect. I did a lot of my own research, so I had a good idea going into it.
Okay, maybe that's something that I can make suggestions towards.
I think there's a website called Sparky Facts. That was quite a good one.
Yeah, I've seen that on occasion. They have multiple choice exam questions and things on there as well. And again,
yeah.
If you'll actually look on eFix now, they have a whole section on there for practice exam questions. And I think they even have what to expect through AM2. So again, looking at some of the YouTube content, there's more from that kind of sector. I mean, obviously, Gary's been a lecturer for a long, long time. He knows what's involved with AM2 better than anybody else, I would say. So the fact that content's there is great, and maybe more apprentices are aware of that than I give credit for, because obviously I'm not from the YouTube generation as such, even though we're trying to do our own YouTube videos now. So yeah, that's been an interesting little chat, Matthew, and you gave good insight into what it was like for you through your apprenticeship, and also offered some ideas and input and advice. We're going to get you back on this channel to have a chat with some actual active apprentices. I'm hoping that Vicky's going to come on. You might have heard her on some of the EGT podcasts. She's appeared on a couple of episodes, and hopefully Nick and Adam might come and record something with us as well. I know Neil's going to come on and have a chat. Whether he can convince any of his apprentices to come and say anything as well remains to be seen. But we'll spread this out around a few more voices and see if we can gather a bit more industry input and ideas. And hopefully we can help in some way just by talking about it. So thanks for coming on, Matthew, and having a little chat. It's appreciated. I know it's not something you do every day or are overly keen on, but maybe you'll come back and have another chat another day.
I'll come back.
Good. Right, we'll catch you all later. Goodbye.
See ya.
So I'm now on my phone, and this might record a bit better for the video side of this this episode. And I could have asked Matthew a load more questions. I had a lot more things written down, but I was conscious that it's his first time doing anything like this, and I didn't want to grill him. So it's a gentle introduction, and we can certainly get a bit more information out of him as time moves on. You know, what his aims and objectives might be, for example, in the future. But, you know, I really wanted to speak a little bit about the difference he's made to my business. Since he's qualified, some of the work he's done is incredible. He's able to go off and install very competently now. Deals with the customers in a great way. He's keen, motivated. He's conscientious. He just gets on with it. And that's all through the apprenticeship system, really. So I've got an employee in a mould of making that helps my business the best. You know, it's been a great thing for us to do, and continue to do going forward, because as we grow, that's the best way to do it. I mean, you get that long-term growth in your business, keen and motivated people who know how you want to work. And they are out there. There's loads of dedicated, hard-working young people who are desperate to be electricians, and it's important that those of us who are out there with little businesses at the minute do our bit to give them jobs to work in. And as we bounce back from COVID through the course of 2021, that's something I would encourage everybody to look at. You know, if you do have the work volume there, and we are seeing that in construction, we do seem to have more opportunities still, and a lot of other industries for sure. You know, it's well worth considering, and Matthew's been a great success for our business. And yeah, we'll get him back on, and he can have a better chat about things. We can even ask him what music he likes, and what's his favourite brand of sausages, maybe. I don't know, there's all sorts of questions we can ask him. But no, it would be nice to get his thoughts on where he sees his career going, where he thinks the best routes to develop his skills to work towards that, because he ain't going to want to stay just being an electrician working for his dad forever. He might want to take my job maybe and build the business better than I can, or he might want to go off and set up on his own or do anything. The world is his oyster now, and that's the idea of putting those skills and qualifications into him. It's not to hold him back, it's to help him thrive, and hopefully he does that within my business. But if he doesn't, all credit to him. I wouldn't ever stand in his way for anything he wants to do. But yeah, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Again, this is going out on podcast format and on YouTube. So we do have the Apprentice 1-to-1 podcast now. If you're still listening, you can head over to Podbean or your podcast provider of choice on Apple handsets and such, and give it a listen if you're in the van. See what you think. I'm hoping to get a lot more people coming on just to do a little short series of between 6 and 10 episodes, and that will be it. It's just to discuss the apprenticeship system and see if we can raise some interesting points and ideas on how we can help that thrive in the next few years. So yeah, thank you again for listening and watching, and catch you on the next one.